What's up, Mo?
Yo, Justin, how
Back-
goes it?
Good. Back for another installment.
Yeah,
So big news.
yeah.
Phil actually took the job.
Phil Jackson, the Zen Master.
What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, I don't know how it really changes things. I understand that Phil Jackson is, the guru of putting but he doesn't put teams together. That's the thing. He is a coaching guru. He figures out a way to get a lot out of players. That being said, I mean, he did have, the greatest player ever, maybe the best player of this next generation. Not to kind of pinhole Kobe one way or another, but he had those advantages. Now,
Shaq.
yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks obviously are a totally different breed, and I understand that they probably have some kind of agreement with James Dolan saying that he's not going to interfere at all, but they did stuff that was really similar with Larry Brown and Donnie Walsh, where it seemed like these guys were having control. And, not for Larry Brown, but for Donnie Walsh, it almost seemed like just when they were starting to get a handle on shit, that's when they got annexed. That's when they got the heave-ho. And I like that he is the, face of the franchise. I don't know what that necessarily means, any more so than I do that Drake is the ambassador of the Raptors, right? But, yeah, it's a curious move. I think whatever gets them out of the headlines for being such shit this year is probably a good idea, and I really don't care how the organization spends their money, other than the players. So it doesn't affect their cap. So give the guys some money, I guess. It doesn't change things one way or another, I don't think.
Okay, yeah. So there are a couple points there that I agree with you. Everybody seems to think that this. Well, okay, I will say that this is a good move for the Knicks. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is a terrible move. Oh, you got Phil Jackson. You didn't know what the hell they're doing. No, finally it seems like they got somebody who really knows what they're doing, except for the fact that people forget about Donnie Walsh, right? And even to a lesser extent, Glenn Grunwald, right?
Yeah.
He's an experienced general manager. If you look back at our Raptors history, he's definitely one of our better general manager, which
Not saying much. Fair
but
enough.
he wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
Right? He's a real general manager. James Dolan is not a real general manager.
No.
Steve Mills, to me, is not a real general manager.
No.
So, to fire a legit guy, to hire one of your guys who's not legit, just because he's one of your guys, it shows me the priorities aren't right, aren't straight. And so that's exactly right, because Donnie Walsh, back with the Pacers now, right?
Yeah.
And obviously he works under Larry, right? Larry is the guy who runs everything in Indiana, but Donnie is kind of like the general manager.
I think that he could be even retired at this point. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know he was a big part of building their team
before he came to New York, and now he went back.
Yeah.
From what I hear, he took it over for a bit.
Yeah.
And when Larry had the 1 year or 2 year hiatus, then Larry came back, was president of basketball operations, and Donnie would be general manager or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, or vice president or something.
Yeah.
So
definitely a very intelligent basketball mind. No reason why he
Yeah.
couldn't have had the template for success in New York.
he absolutely, to me, ran the team the right way.
Yeah.
That whole Melo thing was all James Dolan.
Yeah.
Giving up all those assets.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm not necessarily the most opposed to the Melo trade. I'm not the most opposed to. There are a lot of things that happened after the fact that I would say that I would be opposed to. But the trade itself, I didn't think was awful.
I think that giving up that extra pick.
The pick hurts.
The pick hurts.
That was the worst part of the trade. But
and that's what I love about Ujiri, because he was
now
he runs the Raptors, but when he was with the Nuggets, he was good with getting those picks.
Instrumented that.
He got a pick for Bargnani. From New York. So those two, not as much for Carmelo, but definitely for Bargnani.
Yeah.
It really probably kills the Knicks. But I think that when things got a little hairy, so to speak, and things got I don't know what the disagreements were in behind closed doors, but as soon as shit hit the fan, James Dolan just is like, you know what, I'm the owner, I pay the bills, so you're out of here.
Yeah.
You know,
and which is why he's such a terrible owner.
Yeah, and I think that how many times can you trade players? How many times can you fire coaches and fire general managers before you're like, hey, what's the one constant for the lack of success? And that's ownership.
Right.
I think for a while that's what happened with like Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. When the
for far too long.
Ontario Teachers Pension Fund.
Yeah.
And then, love it or hate it, that Rogers and Bell took over, but they want to win.
Yeah.
And so it's ownership. It always starts at the top. We can look at the Lakers and say the same type of thing.
Yeah, except for the fact that they've been consistently good, except for the 1 year where they were not.
Well, that's because
right?
My point is that Jerry Buss passed
course.
away, and now the son,
now
the loser brother or loser son, takes over.
Yeah.
And they're terrible. They basically spit in Phil's face 3 times. So
yeah, this is the interesting thing about the whole Phil Jackson signing with the Knicks. It just always felt like a sort of like
a leverage move.
Leverage was the more business sense. It felt like he was trying to run a little game on the Lakers. That's what it felt
I would
like.
agree with that.
He felt like being like, well, like seriously, if you're not gonna put out, I'm gonna go and speak. I'm gonna go to the Knicks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't even think that they believed it. Maybe they thought he was bluffing, or maybe I don't know. It felt like a smart move on Phil's part to try to get them to do it, but I feel like after they had gone with D'Antoni the last time, I think that was pretty much they burned that bridge there. I felt like they had established that they were done with Phil.
Yeah.
But I still don't know what that means in terms of how he is going to alter the Knicks as a franchise, other than being a figurehead, which is nice, right? It's good to be associated with a winner when the team is really shitty, but
yeah, here's what I would say. We'll talk about the Lakers later, but I think that Phil. It's from what I hear, it took like the better part of 3 months before he finally accepted the job, and I think that shows me he was just kind of like, "Are you really not going to take me back?" It's like looking at your ex and be like, "Are you really not going to take me back? You're not going to take me back?
Serious?
Seriously?
We've got all this history.
Seriously, I'm here. Like, think about the good times. Like, really? You going to do me dirty like that?
Your team is struggling. I am a winner. We have history.
I am going to marry Jeannie Buss, who is president of
the owner's daughter.
Yeah,
right?
Okay. She's not basketball operations, but she's pretty much everything else. The business
she's
side,
got power.
right? So I mean, if there's an in, and if there's the fans would love it, Kobe wouldn't have a problem with it. You know that.
Yeah.
So I mean, if Kobe didn't have publicly a problem with Mike Brown and Mike D'Antoni, he'll definitely love Phil Jackson. And Phil was, from what I hear, willing to just coach like home games when they had Dwight and Steve Nash that first year, last year.
Yeah.
Seemed like so long ago, but it was only a year ago.
Yeah.
And they said they wouldn't even give Phil the weekend to think of it. And on like Sunday morning or Sunday night, or I don't know when it was, because he needed to like Monday or something to think about it. They called him. Mitch called him. Was just like, we think Mike is a better fit for this team. So that just that's not Mitch to me. That's Jim Buss to me.
Yeah. So
I want to see what happens with Dolan, because if we look back at history, Donnie Walsh is doing really well. He signed Amari when Amari was healthy, and then he had all these good role players and complementary pieces. That was a team that, if Amari was healthy, to me was going to win 50 games. Yeah. Could have gone to the second round. And then, obviously, the Melo thing is a big deal, but I just think that Dolan hijacked it. Those are all the reports. And then there were problems, and Walsh felt like, now you're not letting me do my job.
Yeah.
And when shit hit the fan, like I said earlier, James Dolan shows his true colors. So what's going to happen with Phil?
Yeah.
That's what my concern is, because we're looking at the Knicks' future here. They got no pick. They got 40 to 50 million, maybe even 60 million tied to 4 players. Because you think of Chandler, Melo, Amari, and Bargnani. They all make 10 mil plus.
Yeah.
Amari and Melo make 20 mil plus. So that's 60 million in 4 guys. They got no pick.
And
no one's going to trade for J.R. Smith.
Look at those 4 guys that you've decided to be the guys on your team.
Right. So, like, even think about it. If you don't trade anybody in your core, right? What can you get for Felton? What can you get for JR? You don't want to trade Tim Hardaway.
You can't.
That's the one guy people want. Or Shumpert.
But let's face it. Nobody wants J.R. Smith at this point.
Exactly.
It was silly to re-sign him.
To that much money. It was a lot of money.
Yeah. It was not a good idea. I mean, it's not that the contract even was so bad. It's just that it was silly. There was no purpose to it. I don't think anybody out there was going to pay him like that. And there was another, Knicks foible that was not smart. He doesn't have value. I don't know that after this season that Felton has much value. The only ones that have value are Shumpert, and to be honest, I feel like he's more of a question mark value, that he has upside, but you're not really sure what he can really bring. He's definitely been injured a whole bunch. And Tim Hardaway, the same thing. He's had a really good first year. Nothing but real praise for Tim Hardaway, especially on the team that they've had.
Yep.
But you trade away those guys. What are you supposed to do?
But if you don't trade them, what do you do?
You're stuck being really crappy for a couple years with these 4+ overplayed aging players that are really like Tyson Chandler. He has no lift anymore. Have you noticed that? Not to say that he had that much lift to begin with, but
to begin with, in his career and his Knicks career.
In his Knicks career. Then again, he was coming off a championship
where universally regarded as one of the biggest reasons why they won.
For sure.
This is what I'll say though. Continuing the Phil Jackson point with James Dolan, it's like I think Phil's gonna look at his roster and think what we think. These guys aren't exactly okay. I won't say any of them are selfish per se. I don't think any of these guys are bad people and bad in the locker room. But Amari doesn't seem like a high IQ basketball guy. You know, Andreas seems like he kind of is, but doesn't push himself ever.
No,
it doesn't really put the effort in.
I am unwilling to label Bargnani having any kind of basketball IQ.
Okay, well there we go. So
I think if nothing else, that shows just in the fact that at how much better the Raptors have played defensively this season.
Oh, absolutely.
With people that are committed to playing defensively.
Yeah.
Whereas he is and was and will always be a defensive liability despite his 7-foot frame.
Yep. Absolutely. You got Melo, who also isn't the highest basketball IQ guy.
No, but I think Phil also said recently that he intends to sign Melo, right?
Yes, I was going to get to that later. But my point is, Phil's going to look at his roster and think, I want to move all these guys. And if Dolan has any connection or any... If Dolan disagrees, what happens then? Because he said, yes, I'm... grateful. What is the word? Gratefully and willfully, gratefully moving aside to let Phil take over, because that's everyone's question, right? Yeah. And he did similar things with Donnie Walsh. Now this is different because it's Phil. He's a much bigger name. Donnie Walsh is a big name for people who know basketball, but people who don't know basketball know Phil. Right. He's a 13-time champ. He's been on part of 13 championship teams. I just think that Dolan needs to. I don't think people really change, so I don't see how this. We'll see. My prediction. I thought that honestly Phil wasn't gonna take this job, and that if he did, it would be a money grab, and he'd be cool with getting fired. Because from what I hear, he's getting $60 million no matter what.
Yeah. If
he works one day and gets fired, he's getting $60 million. So Phil is in the clear, if you think about it. Because Dolan, from what I hear, I listened to First Take, and Stephen A. is reporting that, James Dolan is moving aside and thinking, hey, if anything goes wrong, it's not on me, it's on Phil. I don't think the fans think that at all. It's still on Dolan, right? Because Phil, his record's more or less proven, right?
I guess.
I mean, he's not an executive yet, but even if he fails as an executive, look at Dolan's resume and look at Phil's resume.
You're right.
And Phil makes $60 million and can still go back to Montana and go back to LA. Just because it didn't work in New York, I don't think people are going to be like, oh, I can't hire Phil Jackson. I think they'd be like, no, I think things didn't work out in New York, but I'd still take a shot at it.
Of course, the Knicks have become a vortex of failure. They have disappointed at almost every point. I mean,
they remind me of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know it's a different sport, but
no, I could
you know what I'm saying?
I could see that
because it's been 40 plus years. It's like the mecca of the sport, right? Toronto's the mecca of hockey. New York's the mecca of basketball. The league, both leagues do better when those teams are good, and they just haven't been good in forever. It
seems like for every positive move that they make 2 negative ones.
Well, more than that.
Probably
more than that.
I wanted to err on optimism,
right?
That's probably realistic.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they'll do. I just don't see how these contracts are going to be tradable. I don't understand how they're going to. But then I said the same thing about Rudy Gay. I didn't think Rudy Gay would be tradable because his contract next year is definitely going to be guaranteed.
I didn't think Bargnani would be tradable.
No, I didn't think that either. But I guess there are some. So maybe but that relies on the genius mind of Phil Jackson, and I don't know how well he serves as a general manager.
Yeah,
maybe he'll be a good talent evaluator.
Yeah. So let's move on here for a bit. You're looking at the Knicks. Okay, so who do you think they hire as coach, right? Because I'm assuming that, Carmelo and coach are one of the top two, on the priority list, right?
Yeah.
Woodson's gone for sure. Are you saying?
I would say so. Yes.
Me too.
For sure.
And it sucks for Woodson, but I think Woodson needs to move on just for both parties, right?
I agree.
Yeah, it was unfair to him that he was what happened to him this year.
He was not in a win situation. You can't. No. I think when people try to put a defensive coach on a team where you clearly sit back and say, well, this team doesn't really that's not really capable. They're not really capable. I just don't see them having capabilities. But what did they do? Well, they went with an offensive coach like D'Antoni, and that didn't work. And then they went with a defensive coach like Woodson, and that didn't work. I don't know what. I think that they should try to sign George Karl. That would probably be the move. If I were Phil Jackson and I was looking to retain Carmelo Anthony.
What about somebody like Lionel Hollins or Alvin Gentry? Guys who are kind of like assistants, or I don't know where Lionel is, but they're like even like a Mo Cheeks, like guys that have had some experience. And I don't know who could teach the triangle. That's one. That's why I don't know if.
Oh yeah.
Would you take that over Kurt Rambis, like Lionel Hollins? I personally would, but how important is the system to fill, right?
I bet he will be. I'm changing my opinion. I bet he probably goes with someone who backs the triangle.
Yeah.
That he'll want to implement it. It will be important. And then I guess I could see him putting it, because he is it's not going to be the coach that's the face. It's going to be Phil Jackson that's the face of the franchise, whoever they pick. So I bet it would be someone like Kurt Rambis.
Do you think it'll be like a Pat Riley situation with Spoelstra? Because Spoelstra is an unknown.
Well, I would have guessed that would have been the case to begin with. I would have guessed that that's what they said. The Knicks came into that whole ordeal or situation thinking, all right, Phil Jackson, we're going to offer you the Riley deal. We're going to give you the opportunity to take control of the franchise. We're going to have this availability of coaching if need be, that, we're going to make it accessible to you as well. So I bet I could see it happening.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up the salary, the cap situation for the Knicks, and I'm looking at Mara's got, 2003, 2004, that's this. So he's got one more year of 23. Melo's got player option, but he's going to re-sign. Chandler's got one more year, 14.5. Bargnani's got one more year at 12. JR's got one more year at 6 and another year player option, so he'll probably take that.
Yeah, for
Felton
sure.
another year for $4 million. Shumpert $2 million. Yeah, so they still have they're still really capped for one more year. That's the debate with Melo, whether he stays or not. Because see, the coaching decision is so important, right? I mean, because that hinges on whether Melo wants to stay or not. Because I think, first of all, Phil, does he hire a triangle guy? I think he hires at least like a triangle-based system guy.
Yeah,
I'm not sure anyone's ever going to run it like him. Like, it's not like Tex Winter is going to like be a head coach.
No, of
he's not.
Of course not.
Right? He's not. And it's like who's going to run the triangle? Well, who knows it? There's Rambis.
Brian Shaw, I guess,
but he's in Denver.
He's in Denver.
There are rumors about Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr.
But I wouldn't take that chance. Not in New York. Not. I don't know. Like, can a rookie head coach?
Maybe you do that. I don't know. I don't see. I see Phil doing that though. I see him now putting the triangle in place because that's the purpose. He wouldn't want to go into the system where it wouldn't be able to be implemented. Yeah. And I know someone like Shaw would make sense because he was his player for so long.
Yeah.
Rambis was his longtime assistant, and that would also probably make some sense.
But he didn't look too good
in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have thought that would have gone better too.
Yeah.
But maybe Kevin Love was too young.
I think. By the way, I thought Adelman would be doing better.
Yeah.
I thought they'd at least be a playoff team.
Me too.
Well, anyways, the point is.
But wait, that's a good question. Speaking of playoff, how crazy is it that the Knicks could be in the playoffs?
Well, they're 5 games back. There's still 17 games left, something like that, 16, 17. So they pretty much have to win out, right? They're kind of like the Timberwolves. They're in the 9th spot, or they're I don't know. Where
they need help.
They need help from the other teams, like Atlanta losing, and Charlotte losing, and
I don't think they can catch Charlotte, but they can catch Atlanta. I think
they can, but who knows? I mean, the Knicks have won 7 in a row. They beat the Pacers. If you could beat the Pacers, I know the Pacers are struggling, but that's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Even though they're struggling, I don't think they're going to make it. But even if they did, it wouldn't change anything for me.
No, it wouldn't change anything. It would just be something that would be nice to see.
You play the Pacers or the Heat in the first round. Okay, you're getting murdered. Yeah. And even if you win 2 games, so what? It doesn't mean anything because you're not a championship contender.
No moral victory for this
team
moral
that was
utter shit for so long.
Oh yeah, I'll give it moral victory, sure. But
I mean, obviously, it's not saving anybody's job. It's not going to spare Woodson from being fired, which he should be.
Yeah.
It's not going to get anybody any kind of resurgence. Any of these guys.
It's not going to make Melo think, "Oh my God, we won 2 games in the first round," right?
Yeah, of course.
So look at the last quarter. Can you say quarter? The last 10-15% of the season.
Yeah.
And be like, "Oh my God," you're not going to do that because the first 3 quarters were just horrendous, awful. Yeah. As bad as I've ever seen it. Like the Nets turned it around pretty successfully, and their cap situation may be worse than New York, and then they really had a rookie head coach.
Yeah.
So, but to me, it's all ownership. Okay, so coaching, we're predicting a triangle guy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's? Do you think he'll do the Pat Riley thing? Hire somebody he'll take a shot on somebody who's unknown, but he knows can do it.
Yeah, I mean that to me it would be someone like I just don't I don't think that Kerr would Kerr still is the president of Phoenix, is he not? No, he's no longer associated with Phoenix at all.
No, he hasn't been associated in like 3 years, man.
Really? So he's just a commentator, right?
Yeah, he's just a commentator, man.
Yeah. So maybe he gets a shot.
Because I don't think you can be a president and commentator at the same time.
No, maybe not.
Yeah,
but
he did all right in Phoenix.
He did do all right in Phoenix.
But that's executive and this is coaching. It kind of should be Steve as executive and Phil coaching.
Exactly. So if you're gonna do one, then might as well. And sure, he knows the try. So. That's what I would say, either a former player or a former assistant. Kurt Rambis was his #1 assistant for the longest time. So I would say it would probably be either him or it was going to be someone like Kerr or Shaw. Shaw's not, I doubt, leaving Denver. I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs. They haven't had a very good year.
But that's not all Shaw's fault.
No, it's not. It's not really so much on Shaw. Yeah. And the triangle, I mean, they had a lot of really young players that maybe didn't get it fully to begin with.
All right, so Melo.
Yeah.
Is he staying for sure now?
I would say that he probably will stay for sure, mostly because of the fact that they can pay him the most money. That's what I would say. That money will talk with Melo, I believe. And it's already established. I mean, the time to go would be now. If he wants to win a championship with someone other than the Knicks, while being the #1 guy, the time to do it is now, right? If he otherwise, what's he gonna do on the Knicks? I mean, could he go to the Chicago Bulls and make the Chicago Bulls a really good team?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah. That's all they're missing, a number one scoring guy.
You know?
This is what I think. I think that, before Phil was officially, hired, Phil had like an interview on HBO or something like that, talking about how the Knicks roster is clumsy. There are a lot of guys who don't really know how to like play in a team system or off the ball. Everyone needs the ball. It's not constructed well, and that Melo is a guy who stops the ball. Every time he touches the ball, he stops the ball, right? And this was like, I think, like 6 months ago or something.
Yeah.
Like an off season when they were like, hey, this is when they were discussing. This was when the Dwight stuff was happening, free agency,
Right.
and hey, maybe Phil comes back, and they asked him if he would take the job in New York, and he said no. And I think that I was basing my prediction of Melo staying in New York off that, because I was thinking Stephen A. had reported that Melo was like still thinking about leaving. This is before Phil, like I think this was Phil like just rumored to be like hired, right? And because Melo didn't feel like Phil believed in him, didn't feel like Phil looks at this team and is like, oh man, Melo's the guy to take us there. And we're all human beings, right? You do need someone to believe in you,
Right.
no matter how great you are. And Phil wrote about this in his books. It's like, no matter how great the player is, you still need them to have confidence. And I think the fact that he had that interview saying that Melo has another level, and that Melo, there are things that I could talk, and that he's definitely in their future plans, that makes me think, man, like, I think Melo would stay if he was smart, because, first of all, happy wife, happy life. Lala loves it in New York.
Yeah.
She's a big reason why they are in New York. He loves it in New York. You can be the king of New York. Now you have a guy who will really implement this, like a team-based, like a system you can fall back on when things get tough, right? I mean,
Right.
That's theoretically what you're thinking. And like, if you're Melo, it's like you think about your legacy and you think about your career. Not only people are going to criticize about the fact that you don't even make it to the finals or anything, and that you weren't maybe a true superstar, right? People still don't consider, like I don't consider him a true superstar. Like if you put him on any team, would they automatically be a playoff team? No. But I'd say that about LeBron. You know what I mean? I think you put LeBron on the Milwaukee Bucks, they'll make the 8th seed in the East. That's a true superstar. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that about Melo. Right?
I think clearly we're gonna be seeing it about Melo when the Knicks don't make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
But I would agree they're not on the same level, but that's different. It's LeBron could be one of the best ever.
Right.
That he might be the only one that you could say that about truly. Maybe Kevin Durant as well.
Yeah, maybe at this point. Yeah.
At this point, but really, who else could you say that about?
But that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And even for Kobe, for all of his greatness, the one season where it was just Kobe alone, they didn't make the playoffs, and he pretty much demanded to get out of there.
Right.
In the famous go get Jason Kidd quote.
Or not even that. It was Andrew Bynum trade his ass.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. I remember.
No, I think there was one year he made it as like the 7th seed, and then they had to play this Phoenix Suns, and then it wasn't. I don't think they had Pau Gasol yet, right?
No.
Because that year, he dropped that floater and then the game-winning shot, right, against the Suns. But then that last game, I think it was a Game 5 or Game 7. I don't know what it was. But he wouldn't shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did make the playoffs.
But yeah,
that was a terrible team, though. I will say that team was not a good team.
But the point is that the idea of true superstar being a guy that you put on any team, being able to elevate them to that level. I just don't know that LeBron might be the only one, and he did it on Cleveland. So there's
for years.
There's proof.
For years.
He got them as far as the finals on a player who he was very much an incomplete product when he was on those Cleveland teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. I bet that the LeBron now, with the game where he's at now, had he been on those Cleveland teams, I bet they would have won those championships.
Yeah, I believe
at least they would have won one.
Yeah. But you see, the difference is that never would have happened if he wasn't with a good organization. You know, I just don't think that you replace Dan Gilbert with Mickey Arison, upgrade. You replace, I don't know who it was, Danny Ferry with Pat Riley, huge upgrade.
Yeah.
Just huge upgrade. Spoelstra with Brown, big upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So all around, it's a big upgrade. You know, who's the second best player on that team? Mo Williams, Larry Hughes, Dwayne Wade, huge upgrade. Third best player.
Yeah.
Varejao, I don't know, right? Igalskis, Bosch, huge upgrade. So a lot of the things that LeBron has were learned in Miami. He wouldn't have learned it in Cleveland unless that organization in Cleveland was a great organization, which they've proven not to be.
No,
right?
they are not a good
They
organization.
are not. So, anyways.
Oh, so there you go. If LeBron goes to Cleveland next year, this is not going to happen. I do not believe that it will happen. But I'm just saying that if LeBron goes to Cleveland next year, wouldn't you put them in the top, contenders for a championship?
Well, yeah, they'd be there. Yeah. Well, obviously Miami falls off, and
Miami would fall off clearly.
They are. I think they'd be behind the Pacers, but it really depends on how they restructure their team, right? If you just trade like Luol Deng for, LeBron straight up, this was like a video game, 2K or something, you could do that.
Right.
Would they be much better? Absolutely, but would they win the championship? I don't think so. I don't think that team beats the Spurs or the Thunder, right?
I don't know.
But they might.
I think it would be interesting.
But who's the coach? If Mike Brown's still the coach, I'm not really trusting them.
No, I guess I'm not really trusting them either. If Mike Brown's still.
If Spoelstra's the coach, that's a different thing.
It wouldn't be Spoelstra because in this hypothetical situation, it would have to be them firing Mike Brown in the offseason to probably bring in whoever LeBron wanted to be the coach.
Right. If they brought in like Lionel Hollins, I believe it. Even Alvin Gentry, even guys like that, George Karl, but.
I think the idea of LeBron James playing with Kyrie would be amazing.
It would be.
Yeah.
Because LeBron would. Do you think he'd still be as on the ball, or do you think Kyrie would be on the ball?
I think that he would elevate the game of all of those young guys. I think that
so Kyrie would be more of a scorer to me.
Yeah. I feel like Thompson would be better too. I think that him being around Bennett would be, way better. Amazing. Yeah. Maybe that's all Cleveland needs in order to turn their organization around.
Yeah, the best player in the world.
Convince LeBron James to come back to his home.
Every team could say that. Like the Raptors could be like, hey, you know who we could use?
LeBron James. That's the standard issue argument. It's just like, name a troubled player who has skill. What team would that troubled player with skill be good on? Tell me what team that troubled player with skill would be good on.
Spurs.
That's the Spurs 100%.
Right.
Everybody will say that. Yeah. He has to go to Pop. Pop will teach him. That was what I heard from about Bargnani for the longest time. He'd be so good if he was just a
what? The more you think about it, he would be.
No, he would still be, I think, a defensive liability.
Okay, there's no question, but I think that do we think of Marco Bellinelli as like not a defensive liability? He learned how to be a team defender in Chicago, and now he can transfer that in San Antonio. I'm just saying if the Spurs had drafted him, right, like 8 years ago, I think in like 3 or 4 years he would have those formative years he would have been fine.
I'll bet on that because in this hypothetical scenario,
I don't think he'd be better than LaMarcus. I don't think he would ever be better than LaMarcus. But could he learn to be a serviceable starting 4 or 5 beside Tim Duncan? How could you not? He's like, you know what I mean? He doesn't even have to be the guy. You can rotate him in a rotation with Diaw and Splitter and whatever, Jeff Ayers or whatever, right? Aaron Baines.
I've gone far too many years of giving Bargnani the benefit of the doubt in this.
This is what I'm saying. I don't give him benefit of the doubt because he was with the Raptors, and the Raptors are a terrible organization.
Right.
And you see with Colangelo, right? As soon as he leaves, everything is better, even though it's the same pieces. Yeah. Everybody wants to say Colangelo gets the credit. I don't give him any of the credit because, yes, he drafted Ross and Valanciunas. Those are fine picks. Not Ross is still a good pick, even though Drummond was Drummond. But I think Ross has proven to be it hurts a lot less now.
I've got a lot. Terrence Ross has been such a pleasant surprise. Yeah, he really has surprised me.
So Kyle Lowry was traded for a second-round pick. I mean, there's a lot of moves that he made. DeRozan getting re-signed. Okay, that looks like a fine contract now.
Looks like a really good contract
right now. So you look at it and you're like, man, Colangelo, why did he get fired? It's like, well, because when he ran the organization, it was his way. And he was a control freak. And he didn't let Casey coach the way he wanted to coach. And as soon as Ujiri is basically, I'm taking a step back. I am not going to micromanage like Colangelo did. And look what happened. Yeah. So it is Colangelo's fault, you know, because he enabled Bargnani. He enabled all the guys that he drafted or were his guys. You know, Jose was never yelled at enough for getting blown by consistently in the perimeter. It's different in Dallas for him.
Yeah,
it's different. Rick Carlisle will get on his case.
Yeah, you know? Of course, but Jose has limitations as
right,
as well.
But my point is, you got to put. I mean, if some guy kills you on the perimeter, it can't just be, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. You know. Anyways, we're talking about the Knicks here, so let's wrap it up though. So I'm saying that Melo will stay because I think that Phil, what he said recently, Melo being the future plans, he's got another level, and I'm sure he's going to discuss with Melo what his plans are, what he wants to do, and I'm sure Melo is going to be like, you know, finally, like, because say what you will about Donnie Walsh, I'm not sure he's won championships, right?
I don't think he's won championships either.
His teams have contended, but not winners like, you know, Phil.
Yeah.
And Phil, I consider the greatest coach of all time because he took basically 4 different teams and won, which is just incredible. But I think that Melo is going to be like Donnie Walsh is really good, but Phil is the man.
Yeah.
Like, he is the man, right? He is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of basketball coaching.
Of
right?
coaching,
like,
yes.
Like, there's no question. So I think if you are for sure on the Mount Rushmore, there's a lot you can learn.
Yeah.
Being in New York, your wife loves it. You make the most money. You know, fans don't blame Melo. Fans don't want him to be gone. As much as this team has been terrible and this year has been just the worst, Knicks fans want Melo to stay.
You think so? I don't know.
Are you sure they don't?
Because
who are they getting to replace him? Right? Are you for sure? Okay, this is what the argument is. Like, Melo goes, then next year you can maybe convince LeBron. Like the year after.
Yeah.
That's a big risk because they tried that 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think that they want Melo to stay because you're not going to get Blake Griffin. You're not going to get Steph Curry. You're not going to get, like, a lot of these guys that or James Harden or, you know what I mean? Like,
maybe they get Kevin Love. Whoa.
Maybe, but you still got to wait a year, right?
Yeah.
You can still wait a year. So Melo's gone, and then I guess they could tank. You know, they could tank if Phil could really put his system in, put his coach in, no pressure.
Maybe that's what he does.
Honestly, that's what I thought before he made those comments. But after he made the comments, I think Melo will want to stay.
I don't know that Melo can waste another year.
I know.
I mean, I really, as a Knicks fan, I would say that they should probably re-sign Melo. But it's only because but it's not the smart move is to say start fresh, right?
Right.
Tell the fans, listen, you know, I know that we have an expectation for the Knicks, blah 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 blah, but clearly what we've been doing isn't working, so we're gonna start fresh. We're just gonna wait it out.
Here's my only issue with the starting fresh, because if they were to start fresh, they would have traded Melo by now, right? Because at this point, the offseason.
Yeah, but maybe they were waiting to see what was happening with Phil. Maybe they thought that they would let him sort out what was going to happen.
I understand that. I just feel that it's your best trading asset is Carmelo Anthony, obviously, to restart. It's been the model. You trade your best player to get as many picks and young prospects as possible, right? Yeah. And relieve cap space. At this point, all they can really do, I think, is a sign and trade, right? In the offseason.
Yeah.
Because you don't, like, it's not like Melo's going to do what Dwight did. Go into his player option and then get traded. You know?
Yeah.
Melo's not as dumb as Dwight. So then, you sign and trade him, how many people are going to want to really give up that many assets? Because they're thinking, well, I guess it would have to be a team that doesn't have cap space.
Yeah.
All right? Like let's say, theoretically, the Miami Heat are like, you know what? Bosh, you've been great, but we're going to trade you for Melo. And it wouldn't even be like a terrible move. It's just, I don't think the Knicks can lose, you know, Melo for nothing. That's the worst thing that can happen. Yeah. You cannot lose this guy for nothing. I think that's why this free agency thing is such a risky business, and obviously Phil is a big move to try to keep him. Probably the best move the Knicks could have done, right? I mean, how else could you convince Melo after this year to stay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no other way. Oh, we hired Phil Jackson. Well, that's a pretty good move. So, but you can't lose him for nothing. I mean, you look at it. You look at the difference between Orlando, Denver, and like, wow, it didn't work out, but New Orleans, and the difference between them and like the Raptors and the Cavs. It's like, and the Lakers even losing Dwight for nothing. When you lose a guy like that, a potential top 10 guy, for nothing, it really kills the franchise.
Yeah.
You don't get anything. Like, give me at least some second round picks or something. Yeah. Something. And yeah, I don't know. I just think with the Knicks, they pretty much have to keep him.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like, because Phil's not coming here to just rebuild, right? I think Phil's always struck me as a guy who pretty much doesn't take no-lose situations, right? Obviously with Jordan the Bulls and and then the Kobe Shaq and Kobe later, Kobe Powell, right? I mean, these are all the top 5 teams. So I don't think he likes the rebuilding part of it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that Phil is one of those guys. I think that, I think Popovich would be more of those guys than Phil would be.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I got a clean slate. I can build these young guys up. And Phil's just like, I just want to win. Yeah. So I think Melo stays. The question is, what happens to everybody else? Because everyone's on an expiring contract. So Chandler can be traded.
Yeah.
Right? But Amari won't be traded. And Bargnani, I don't know. I
don't think that those guys can be traded. I don't think that they have value.
Tyson, you don't think Tyson has value on like let's say Brooklyn wanted. Let's say Brooklyn, because they seem to spend a ton of money.
Yeah.
You don't think Brooklyn would be like, hey, Brook Lopez is out, or you can back up Brook Lopez, and Blotch can play kind of the 4. Plumlee's there. You don't think he has like some value even? I don't know. Let's say the Mavericks take him back, or let's say.
I think, but that's what you have to hope. That's what you have to hope for. But I don't think that realistically people would see it as a positive move.
He does make $14 million. He's
a rental player. Like he's a rental player. He's
but
there for
it's a cost saving thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you have expiring contract, and you're not going to sign him, don't lose him for nothing. That's my point.
Right.
Like it's acquiring assets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got this asset that's depreciating. You got another asset. You can get other assets that can have somewhat equal value and a better long term. So if they could get, I don't know, another big guy or a real point guard, like what if they could get Brendan Knight and like some guy making a lot of money for him?
See, I don't.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. I think the better move almost is
letting him go.
Is letting him go. I mean, because his money just comes off the cap. Isn't that the idea of starting fresh, like starting anew? Is like, okay, fine. You make a trade and you get all these guys on all these different contracts, but they're still not the original ones that you wanted. It's like, well, we're okay with these because it settles in nicely into somebody that we deemed expendable.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily progress us much further.
The only reason I say that is because think about like what happened with the Raptors, right? Would have been the best move to just keep Rudy this year and next year and just let him ride out and start new, or start early and just because a lot of these contracts for the Raptors they're team options, not player options.
Yeah,
and is like you can get somebody for him now. Like, isn't that something that the Knicks could do? Because it's all about winning, right? It's all about building a team. So if you can get 3 solid, C-level tier 3 guys that come off your bench for a guy who should be a tier 1 but is more of a tier 2 guy making tier 1 money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of Tyson, because Tyson's making like number 1 player type money.
Yeah.
$14 million is $14 million, and he's a second tier guy.
Yeah.
So if you could get a couple third tier guys that can help your bench, I don't know. It's something I would consider, right? Because you want to convince Melo to stay. Mm-hmm. You want him happy. You want the Knicks fans happy. You want Dolan happy. I'm just saying, if I'm Phil, you can't go wrong winning in New York. Okay. Any last thoughts on it?
I feel like.
Because you're a Knicks fan. Because you're a Knicks fan, right?
And you know what? I feel like I'm in for a really long
roller coaster.
I really felt for a second, it seemed like they had gotten their shit together.
When was that?
When they were doing really well, maybe it was
last year.
Wow. Where it seemed like they had gotten their shit together. Where
54 wins, man.
54 wins. It was impressive,
That's,
it's just these players are at their
peak.
That's just the thing. They're not young guys anymore. They perfectly represent like an older guard of players that are slowly going to end up being like the veterans. Within 2 years, they're going to be like, the signing guys, the guys we used to see, random signings when we were a kid. The first guys that I'm thinking of for whatever reason is Michael Swetney, that kind of guy, right?
Michael Swetney.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Just like the guys that get signed for smaller contracts to play roles. They're on the verge of that kind of player, Felton, J.R. Smith, Meta World Peace, that disastrous experiment,
Yeah.
The
Knicks have to draft better too. Like Jordan Hill is not the best pick.
Though hindsight is looking a little bit better in that he's been okay. Like he served a role. He's served a good role. It was still a bad pick. Obviously.
I think that top 10 first round picks they got to be for sure starters.
Yeah,
they got to be a starter on a playoff team. You can't go worse than Taj Gibson to me in like a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I don't know, man.
Not that Jordan Hill's. I don't know.
You might have some unrealistic expectations.
I don't know. I felt like wasn't DeRozan drafted after him?
DeRozan was, and I believe Brandon Jennings was as well.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's a big difference in talent.
It is a big difference.
I think the Knicks drafted Channing Frye over somebody, a couple guys in that draft class too.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too.
Tim Hardaway is a good draft pick, and I liked him in Michigan.
Yeah.
So,
but also they haven't had a good. Maybe this is what Phil will help implement too. They haven't had a good history of player development.
They haven't. They've never.
Maybe it's because they've always kind of traded their own players.
Yeah.
But the best player that you've seen them develop, within the last couple of years was probably Gallinari.
Yeah.
And they really saw fit to just trade him at the first chance that they got. So,
to me, this is why they are so much like the Leafs in the NHL, because they never really have a history of developing a young core, like group of 3 or 4 players that they drafted over 3 years, and then they grow for 5 years. They've just pretty much overpaid for guys who are over the hill that used to be big names.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I would think like Steve Francis and Jamal Crawford wasn't over the hill, but Stephon was, and Zach wasn't, but Eddie Curry was. You know what I'm saying? Like they buy players like the Leafs did.
Yep.
So
yeah, for sure.
That's just not a good motto. Okay. Anyways, we are pretty much out of time.
Done with the Knicks.
We'll come back later. Okay, we'll be back.